It is 9 o'clock and we have all the meeting members that are able to join us today.
Great. Well, we are ready to begin then. So I'd like to call the August 2020 Committee on Accreditation meeting to order. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Cynthia Amos, Jomeline Bolatayo, Kathy Kreisha,
Here.
Katrina Chakowski, Cheryl Forbes,
Present.
Bob Fraley,
Here.
Mike Hillis,
Here.
Lynn Larson,
Here.
Marty Martinez,
Here.
Anna Moore,
Here.
Gerard Morrison,
Present.
and Kevin Taylor.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us, everybody, and give part of your summer schedule here. I like the virtual backgrounds. I'm looking through everybody. Looks nice. Let's talk through some logistics about the meeting today. This is a reminder we're once again conducting the meeting entirely virtually. Just a couple of reminders before we get started. Only Terry Clark and Michelle Bernardo are both at the Commission office, and all other staff members, anybody else present, are participating from their own locale. The Zoom has been made available to the public. Regarding Zoom identification, we'd like to ask that everyone check their Zoom ID and be sure it contains your first and last name accurately, so we're able to call on you appropriately, and also so we can get all the names accurately recorded in the record. If you need to update your name, click on the 3 dots in the window with your picture to bring up the rename option. So as we did in June, we're using the webinar platform in Zoom as opposed to the meeting platform. When it is time to take up an item, we will need a moment to bring the appropriate attendees into the main meeting room and make sure they can see and hear the committee, and so we can see and hear them as well. Participants will need to turn their camera on and also be sure they are unmuted. Regarding the microphones, to members of the committee, we're going to mute your microphones to eliminate any background noise that may get in the way of others hearing what is being said by the speakers. We ask that when you speak, unmute yourself, but then please, once you are done speaking, please go back to being muted. You can use your space bar to temporarily unmute yourself as long as the active window is still the Zoom window. And it's much like an intercom system. You just press the space bar when you are speaking and release it when you are done. To members of the public and other stakeholders who are joining the meeting as attendees, your microphones are muted automatically. When you are invited into the main meeting room to speak, the moderator will give you permission to unmute yourself. On a computer, you will do this by clicking the microphone icon in the bottom left-hand corner of the Zoom window. Regarding commenting or asking questions, committee members, some of you may be using the video audio functions, and some of you will be using audio only. If you're using the video and wish to make a comment, please either physically raise your hand on camera or use the raise hand feature in Zoom, which is located at the bottom of the Zoom screen. If you are unable to do either of those, as a last resort, you can also send a message in the chat feature in order to signal that you have a question or comment. Several of us will be looking for those with comments or questions in the chat and the raised hands, but please make sure we don't miss you if you have something to say. We won't go on until everybody's voice is heard. Because we are a public body and must conduct our business in the public forum, we ask that you please do not use the chat feature to make substantive comments or have discussions on any items. Public attendees of this meeting cannot see the chat box, and those who view the video archive of this meeting will not have access to any conversations in the chat. Regarding motions and roll call vote, when you make your motions, please state the motion in full so that there's no question regarding what the motion is. All votes will be conducted via roll call. Just before the vote, we will remind everyone to make sure you are unmuted so that we do not miss anyone's vote. If you are unable to respond via video or audio, you may make your vote known through the chat function. The secretary will have to read your name and your vote when she gets to that part of the roll call vote to make it an official part of the record and to make sure the public knows what the vote is. Because this can happen, because this could be quite cumbersome, we want to be sure we leave this as the last option. And then finally, regarding public comment, if any member of the public wishes to comment on a specific item, please use the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen during the item. You will be brought into the main meeting room at the appropriate time and asked to state your name and affiliation for the record. If you wish to speak on a specific item, please send a request through the chat feature in Zoom telling us which item you wish to speak to so we can make sure to call on you during the appropriate time, or you can send your comments through the chat mode and we'll read them aloud. Please make sure we have your full name and affiliation and which item, number, and name you wish to address. There's also a time designated for general public comment at the end of this meeting. And this meeting is being recorded. After the meeting ends, the archived audio and video will be available via the Commissioner's website. Do any committee members have any questions about these protocols? Okay, seeing none. We have a couple of new members who are joining us today, and I'd like to welcome two members who are new to the COA, Lynn Larson, who's a professor at Brandman University, and J. Kevin Taylor, director of the School of Education from Cal Polytechnic University, San Luis Obispo. So welcome to both of you.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Lynn Larson will start the first of her 4-year term. Also, Jamalyn Balatayo starts her first year of her second term. And Kevin Taylor is filling in the last year of the term that was begun by Jose Luis Alvarado, who is now provost at Cal State LA and can no longer serve on the committee. So thank you all for dedicating your time and expertise to the committee. We want to know a little bit more about you, so we'll start with Lynn. Anything you want to say either about your background, about your thoughts joining the COA?
Hi, everyone. Thank you again. I'm very excited to begin this work with the Committee on Accreditation. I've been a BIR member for many, many years, and I'm kind of a program evaluation nerd. I really enjoy program evaluation and assessment, so I was excited to be selected for this committee and to do this work. I've been at Brandman since 2004. I'm a full professor, and I served as associate dean there for 7 years as well. And in my spare time, I like to pole vault. So
Oh, wow.
I'm excited to be with you all.
Wow, thanks for joining us. So Brandman, is it the university down in Southern California in Irvine?
We have campuses all across the state of California. We have 20 campuses, and we're affiliated with Chapman University.
Okay, yeah, and I teach at Chapman.
Okay.
But are you located down south, or where are you located?
I am. I'm at the Riverside campus.
Okay, great. Well, welcome. Nice to have you.
Thank you.
Okay. And Kevin, I noticed it's J. Kevin Taylor. Do you go by Kevin, or?
Yes, I go by Kevin.
Okay.
It was a fight between my parents. My mom wanted me called Kevin. My dad wanted me called John, and so since my dad was registering the birth certificate, it says John. And when your birth certificate says John and you move to a new country, then all of your paperwork says John. But I didn't even know I was called John until I was 14 or 15. Because mom won at home and I was called Kevin. So either one works. Although you have to call me John Taylor a couple of times before I respond. But I'll respond immediately to Kevin.
Okay, sounds good. Welcome, Kevin. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And thank you both for spending your time with us in the committee. We're looking forward to your contributions. All right, moving on to item 2. Item 2 is the approval of the agenda. The first item. Pardon me. Is there a motion to approve the agenda for the August 2020 meeting? And please remember to unmute your microphone when speaking. Motion, it looks like by Committee Member Martinez, seconded by Member Forbes. Will Secretary now please call the roll?
Kathy Gratian,
What we're asking you at this point, either say aye if you're in favor, opposed, say no.
Kathy Gratian,
Kathy?
Aye. Sorry.
Thanks, Kathy. Cheryl Forbes,
Aye.
Bob Fraley,
Aye.
Mike Hillis,
Aye.
Lynn Larson,
Aye.
Marty Martinez,
Aye.
Anna Moore,
Aye.
Gerard Morrison,
Aye.
Kevin Taylor.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. Item 3. Item 3 is the approval of the minutes of the prior meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the June 2020 meeting? And it would be appropriate at this point for any committee member who was not in attendance to abstain. So looking for a motion. So moved by Co-Chair Moore. Is there a second? Second by Committee Member Hillis. The Secretary, please call the roll.
Kathy Gratian,
Aye.
Cheryl Forbes,
Aye.
Bob Fraley,
Aye.
Mike Hillis,
Aye.
Lynn Larson,
Abstain.
Marty Martinez,
Aye.
Anna Moore,
Aye.
Gerard Morrison,
Aye.
Kevin Taylor.
Abstain.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, thank you. Our motion carries. Item 4. Item 4, the co-chair and members of reports. Any members have anything you wish to report? I know it's crazy time for everybody and a lot of uncertainty going on. So hope we're all hanging in there and kind of dealing with the day-to-day changes. Anything specific you'd like to share with us? Okay, I guess we're all still in shock mode. I get that. Let's move on to item 5 then. Item 5 is staff reports. And we have updates from Ms. Clark and Ms. Sullivan. So Ms. Clark, will you please begin?
Yes, good morning. A couple of our updates are not all that happy in that last week we said goodbye to Dr. Katie Croy and Dr. Wayne Baser as commission staff members. They have both moved to retirement. It's a little different trying to have people retire and deal with retirement events through Zoom, but we did our best. We are in the process of looking for some additional staff members. The state budget, although it is having state employees are taking a furlough, which is a little over a 9% pay cut, the PSD does still have 2 new positions that came in the state budget. So we are in the process of advertising for a consultant for the initial institutional approval process and an analyst that would also work within that system. So we're excited about that. And then the status of bills. It's hard to say where things are. The legislature had a 5-week session left. We're now in the 2nd week of that 5-week session. And so the bills have 4 more weeks to move forward or not move forward. It's unclear what's going to happen because of COVID. And the Senate side is definitely holding what they're willing to discuss with the amount of time there is to COVID-related bills. So previously I've given you updates on the bill about basic skills, the bill about subject matter, the bill about the RICA, and we just don't know where those are going to go. So we're going to have to watch for those, and we'll update you as soon as we find out what's happening. Erin, I think that's what I had for today.
Sure, and you know, Terry really covered everything. I don't have much else, just in terms of maybe some operational information about the upcoming accreditation year. We have next year's site visits beginning early in October, but prior to that, we have some of the rescheduled site visits from this last spring will be happening in September. So we did have 3 institutions when we moved to the shelter in place for COVID. We had 3 institutions that requested just a slight delay for their site visits, which we had offered to them. So we'll be taking those 3 up, and then we'll be starting the accreditation year in early October. And of course, we have the interest survey for program reviewers that went out in the PSCE news several weeks ago. So program review will begin at the end of October. Those sessions will all be virtual, of course, right now. And so those reviewers are being paired together right now, and we're already, looking at who will be potentially the site visit teams for those institutions next year. And then hopefully sometime early October-ish, we may be having a discussion about whether or not site visits in the spring will be virtual or not. We do have an early spring/winter visit at the end of January, early February, and that institution, of course, is a little anxious to know. So hopefully after school starts for sort of everyone, higher ed and K-12s, we'll start to really get some information and have a sense of what needs to happen in the spring. We also have a couple of, we have one important panel, well, we have a lot of important panels right now that staff is working with. But we thought of particular interest to the COA would be the work that Karen Sacramento and Kara Mendoza are doing with the CSTP sort of refresh panel. And actually, I asked Kara if she could be here. She's on, and she can give you probably a much better synopsis of what they're doing than I can. So I'll have Kara go ahead and do that.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to report on the CSTP panel work. We were fortunate enough to have 83 applicants who were interested in joining our work group panel. And of those 83 applicants, we have appointed, our executive director has appointed 26 members for our work group. 6 of those come from our liaisons in the field, and then 20 come from applicants of the 83 we received. Our first meeting was scheduled for April, and little something came up called COVID, so we pushed that April meeting out, and we were able to have our actual first meeting in June. We ended up doing a half-day meeting facilitated by Karen and myself and friends from and partners from CDE and the Region 15 Comprehensive Center. So we had a half-day wonderful first group meeting to build relationships, because working on the CSTP is relationship heavy. We sometimes struggle with conversation and opinions, and so it's really important to lay that groundwork, Karen and I felt. And then we also previewed the work to come and started talking with our work groups about their initial thinkings around updating and refreshing the CSTP. That's our mantra. It's update and refresh. We're not throwing out any babies with any bathwaters. We are bringing the TPEs into the room so that there can be a even more seamless transition from the teacher performance expectations that our candidates in preliminary programs experience through to the CSTPs that our candidates in our induction programs work with. So yeah, we're kind of excited about beginning this work. We have another meeting coming up this September and another one in November. Originally, we had scheduled 4 meetings. Waiting and seeing if 3 will suffice or if we need to add a 4th. So we will definitely keep everyone posted, and we're very excited to continue to start and then continue this work.
Thank you, Kara. And of course, updating the CSTP will be, that's a huge project, and it will kind of touch on a lot of what we do. I don't want to leave out the important work that Miranda and Iore have been doing with the bilingual standards panel. I will not put either of them on the spot right now and ask them to jump in and give an update, but they were also scheduled to have their first meeting in the spring, and of course needed to postpone that. They have met with their panel twice and have 2 more meetings planned.
And
yes.
One of the interesting things is we have a member of that panel on the committee.
We do.
We might ask Cheryl Forbes if she has anything she'd like to share briefly about that panel's work.
And that's a great idea. Yeah.
Well, and Miranda and Iore, feel free to jump in, but it's an exciting panel. We're really very eager to refresh the bilingual authorization standards and bring those forward in light of new research and the expansion of programs after Prop 50. God, now I forgot the proposition, but you know the one I mean. And that, has expanded dual language programs, one of which is on our agenda for today. But one thing I did want to call attention to was that we saw that it would be Prop 58. Thank you, Marty. It would be important for us to, in some way, intersect with the CSTP refresh, because we're seeing that, we want to be sure that the authorizations also build into that that entire system of teacher development, and that if we propose, for example, bilingual teacher performance expectations, that they're in alignment. So it would be exciting to have some intersection with that other group, with Kara's group.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. And committee member Fraley, that's all that staff has for an update this morning.
Great. Thank you all for the wonderful report. Appreciate it. Okay, let's moving on to item 6 then. Item 6 is the program approval recommendations. Program approval, this section is for action. There is one institution with a program for approval, California State University, Fresno. They're adding an intern pathway to existing education specialists, the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Credential Program. Are there any recusals at this item? Okay, seeing none. Bob Locks is the consultant who is assisting the institution with this effort to add an intern component. Also joining us today are Dr. Janice Smith Warshaw, DHH Program Director, and Dr. Chantel Cox, Sign Interpreter. Mr. Locks, would you like to say anything on this item?
Yes. I'd like to give you a quick history of Fresno State's program and explain why you did not receive any documentation for this request. Fresno State has had a deaf and hard of hearing student teaching program since 1998. Having an increased number of requests for a DHH intern program, the institution is asking to be granted this pathway for their program. Common practice has been that when an institution with an approved program would like to add an intern pathway or any additional pathway to their program, commission staff reviews their documents specific to adding the additional pathway. We require the institution to address every program standard and respond to any standard that is to be met differently than their current program, respond to the intern preconditions, complete a course matrix, and a program summary with detailed information regarding their clinical practice. Fresno State has completed all of these requirements to staff satisfaction and is now here to request that they be approved to also offer their DHH program as an intern pathway. Dr. Janice Warshaw, the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Program Director from Fresno State, is now available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Locks. So, Dr. Warshaw, anything you'd like to comment?
Give us 1 second.
Sure.
No, I just wanted to let you know that this is a very exciting time for us, for Fresno State, to be able to offer an internship program if possible, because many school districts in California are screaming for deaf and hard of hearing teachers. And with our internship program, we would be able to support those districts who already have teachers in place, and maybe they have a master's degree in something other than deaf and hard of hearing education. So we are now happy to be able to possibly offer these courses for those teachers that are already in positions and support those districts who have a desperate need.
Thank you. Any committee member have any questions you'd like to ask her? Yeah, Member Force.
First, I just wanted to say I think this is very exciting. As you know, at UC San Diego, we also have a deaf and hard of hearing program, so I very much recognize the need. And I think it's also very positive that it's going to be integrated with your existing student teaching program. But I was curious how you were going to incorporate the pre-service component before the interns take over, if the rest are integrated, or if they're integrated into the rest of the courses.
Yes, we have an education pathway where we show each candidate must take prerequisite courses, and that's already developed. There are 3 modules, and so the first one is an overview concept of deaf education. The intermediate module is intermediate concepts, and then the final one is advanced. So those 3 modules will build in a foundation for deaf education, and so it is much different than what they would take maybe in a special education curriculum course for credential. So the specific path for deaf and hard of hearing program is sort of overlaid so that we can offer information on not only deaf and hard of hearing students, but deaf and hard of hearing students with exceptional needs. So all of that is built in. So our students will come out qualified to teach deaf education, general DHH program, and deaf special needs students.
Okay, so I just was following up on the fact that some of that will occur prior to them being placed in as an intern, correct? All right, thank you. Since we didn't have your
Yeah, so there those are the requirements. It's a fully online program, but for placement, we will be fully supporting them wherever they are in their existing employment. So a lot of that work happens before they're actually interns working on their final student teaching per se. So we will be in contact with their site administrator. We will make sure that they have a mentor in the way of a master teacher. University people will be supervising them and supporting them also.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other committee member have any question or comment? Member Martinez.
Thank you. I had a question, and you partially answered it just in the last response. So one question I had was about supervision. So when they get to the intern stage of their program, what would their placement look like if it was traditional versus the shelter-in-place distance learning model we have now? Can you talk a little bit about what that would look like, and then also just the kind of support they'll receive? You mentioned the mentor and supervisor, but that day-to-day or just-in-time support, if you will, once they're in their intern placement? That's it. Thank you.
Okay, sure. So for the mentorship in the way of a master teacher, they'll have that as much as they are able to. And then we will be supervising the teacher when they're doing their internship, the final student teaching part. So we will actually visit them 4 times. We will also require that they send lesson plans or video lessons along the way. And then the school district, it depends really which district they're in. I'm here obviously in Fresno in Central California. So we will serve students from Bakersfield all the way to the tippy top of Northern California and then Southern California. If somebody from Southern California decides to enter our program as opposed to UC San Diego, we will offer them, we offer fully online courses, and we also have some hybrid that students are able to do, because at this point, some people do not want to leave their job. And so our institution is prepared to offer them a hybrid sort of situation. So if somebody is outside of Fresno, I will find a credentialed teacher in their district who is has a specialty in deaf and hard of hearing education. And we will make sure that that person serves as a mentor or a master teacher to the intern that's in our program. And now obviously with COVID, the online variable comes into play also. So we may do some of that online if this continues.
Thank you. And can you answer just one other question? How many, and Cheryl may be able to answer this also, how many programs are in the state of California, deaf and hard of hearing? Is it just UC San Diego and Fresno now?
Yeah, and Cal State Northridge. Yeah, CSU Northridge. So it's just the 3. Before we had 6, but 3 of them have closed, and so now we're down to 3. And that's to serve the whole state of California.
Thank you.
Thank you. Member Hillis.
Actually, Cal Lutheran has a deaf and hard of hearing program as well.
It's interesting there's none in Northern California, though, sounds like.
Yeah, yes. No, yeah, none in Northern California. Fresno is the only one. We're the farthest north in the state.
Thank you.
Mount St. Mary's has one as well. So.
Mm-hmm. As still does National University.
Yes.
If I can,
and there's one more in Northern California in the review process currently, I believe. So there are 5 approved and maybe 1 more coming.
I just wanted to explain, I'm going to explain about Cal Lutheran and St. Mary's. Those 2, their programs, their philosophy is quite different than the 3 that I mentioned to you. So Fresno and CSUN and UC San Diego. We have a strong practice for ASL and English, so it's a bilingual deaf education program. while the other two that you've mentioned, they have a strong program based on auditory and verbal. So they're quite different than the three that I mentioned.
Thank you. Member Hillis, did you have another question or comment?
Yeah, just really quickly, you know, I've heard a lot about the need for DHH teachers throughout the districts, and I'm curious if you have a take on why it's so difficult to recruit students into the program, because the programs are also tending to end, and I'm just curious your perspective on that.
Okay, so really, number one, the main issue I believe is the entrance exams. There's the CBEST and the CSET, and I think those are provide the most obstacles for our students. So we have maybe students who are Hispanic and not native English speakers, and then we've also got students who have been or born deaf, and so they struggle with those exams. So that's a big barrier based on what I've seen. Another reason that I'm seeing, or situation that I'm seeing, is the feeling is teachers require, the teacher training programs require a lot of coursework. And the time it takes to get through the program is much more strenuous than, you know, maybe just getting a multiple subjects credential and then getting right into the field.
Well, thank you. Any other committee member wish to make a comment or ask a question? Okay, seeing none, this is an action item. So is there a motion to approve CSU Fresno's Education Specialist Deaf and Hard of Hearing Intern Program? So moved by Member Martinez. Is there a second? Second by Member Taylor. Any further discussion? Secretary, please call the roll.
Kathy Christian. Kathy Christian.
Still muted, Kathy.
Mm-hmm.
Kathy, you just simply...
Kathy?
I don't see her.
She's on the left. Well, on my screen. I see Kathy. She's the first
Kathy,
screen.
you're muted.
I was trying to use the space bar. It doesn't work for me. I'm like...
Cheryl Forbes.
Aye.
Bob Fraley.
Aye.
Mike Hillis.
Aye.
Lynn Larson.
Aye.
Marty Martinez.
Aye.
Anna Moore.
Aye.
Gerard Morrison.
Aye.
Kevin Taylor.
Aye.
Right, motion carries. Congratulations, Dr. Borshaw and Dr. Cox. Thank you both for joining us. A very much needed program, as we all know.
Thank you.
So thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
And thank you so much for your support.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to my co-chair. It's an abbreviated meeting, so it's rather early to do so, but we're halfway through the agenda. So now I give you co-chair Moore.
Thank you, Bob. I just want to take a second to welcome Lynn and Kevin. We're excited to have you here. It's an exciting time to be part of this process with all the additional challenges we have with COVID, and we're happy you're here, so welcome. All right, that takes us to item 7, which is report of program status changes. This item is divided into 2 parts. Part 1 includes items for action by the COA, which includes requests to withdraw, requests to reactivate inactive programs, and or requests to add a new content area to an existing program. Part 2 provides information on programs that have transitioned to revised program standards and programs that have elected to change to inactive status. These items are for notification only and require no action by the COA. Part 1, sections A, B, and C. Section A is program withdrawals. and it is for action. There are 3 program sponsors withdrawing 5 programs. Members, please look at the list now and tell us whether there are any recusals on any of the items. We vote at once on all of the items that do not have anyone recusing, and then take up individually the ones that do have recusals. Are there any recusals on the institutions listed? No, you're making it easy on me today. Thank you. All right, Orange Unified School District Education Specialist, added authorization, autism spectrum disorder, effective August 3rd, 2020. University of California, Los Angeles, Education Specialist, added authorization, Early Childhood Special Education, effective August 3rd, 2020. University of Laverne, Specialist Teaching, Reading and Literacy Leadership Specialist, effective August 3rd, 2020. Specialist Teaching, Reading and Literacy, added authorization, effective August 3rd, 2020. And Specialist Teaching, California Teachers of English Learners, CTEL, effective September 15th, 2020. We will have do I have a motion to accept these withdrawals? Motion by Taylor, second by Member Forbes. Roll call vote, please.
Kathy Gracia.
Aye.
Cheryl Forbes.
Aye.
Bob Fraley.
Aye.
Mike Hillis.
Aye.
Lynn Larson.
Aye.
Marty Martinez.
Aye.
Anna Moore.
Aye.
Gerard Morrison.
Aye.
And Kevin Taylor.
Aye.
Motion carries. That takes us to Section B, Program Request and Reactivation, and there are none at this time. Section C, the Adding New Content area. There are no institutions requesting to add new content to an existing program. That takes us to Part 2, Sections D and E, which are for notification purposes only, and no action is required. Section D, there are no programs requesting to transition at this time. Section E, programs moving to inactive status, and there is for notification only, no action is needed, and there are no programs requesting to go to inactive status at this time. That takes us to item 8, the initial program approval for new program sponsors. Consultant Hart Boyd will present this action item. University of California, Merced is seeking approval to offer a bilingual authorization program. Also with us today are UC Merced representatives Mariana Harris, Director of Education Programs at UC Merced Extension, Tammy Johnson, Director, Summer Session and Extension, Marissa Lopez, Associate Director of the Teacher Preparation Program, and Janelle Barnes, Credential Analyst and Teacher Preparation Program Coordinator. Does anyone need to recuse themselves? Great. Mr. Boyd, will you begin, please?
Yes, thank you. This item presents the University of California Merced's Stage 4 responses to the Bilingual Authorization Program standards for the committee's consideration and possible approval. You can refer to page 2 in this item to see where we are in this process. A team of 2 qualified reviewers collaborated on a review of UC Merced's responses and came to a consensus on a final finding of a line for all program standards. As a reminder, in the previous stage, UC Merced was granted provisional approval by the Commission at the April 2018 Commission meeting. And at the August 2018 COA meeting, this body granted program approval to UC Merced's preliminary multiple and single subject programs. As mentioned earlier, this item brings forward UC Merced's remaining program proposal for its proposed bilingual authorization program in Spanish. You may find a hyperlink to the final submission and reviewer feedback in the item. Again, joining us today are institutional representatives, Tammy Johnson, Director of Summer Session and Extension, Mariana Harris, Director of Education Programs at UC Merced Extension, Mariana Lopez, Associate Director of the Teacher Preparation Program, and Janelle Barnes, Credential Analyst and Teacher Preparation Program Coordinator. They will be available to answer any programmatic questions you may have, and staff is available to answer any process questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boyd. We now invite the institutional representatives to briefly comment on their programs, the proposed program. Mariana, you're muted. We can't hear you.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having us this morning. I guess we came before you over 2 years ago, or 2 years ago this month, and we're coming before you again today because we are servicing the Central Valley, the San Joaquin Valley, and we have a need for teachers to have a bilingual authorization. It is something that our candidates have asked for, and many of our schools and districts have also requested. So we look forward to you approving our request to be able to offer a bilingual authorization.
Thank you. Is anyone else from the institution like to say a few words? Mariana, you did a great job. You summed it right up for us. All right, I'd like to provide the COA an opportunity to ask any questions at this time. Cheryl Forbes.
Good morning. Well, thank you, first of all, for a very easy to navigate document that was very thorough. I'm particularly interested in the pathway for teachers who already have a credential. I feel like I had a pretty clear picture of the way that it will unfold for those who are in the multiple or single subject preliminary programs, but I wondered if you could say a little bit more about will the post-credential candidates be taking courses with the preliminary candidates? And can you tell me about the field work for the credential holders?
Okay, 2 parts to your question. The first part is those who would have already acquired their credential can come back and take the courses once they've taken the CSET and passed the Spanish 147 CSET. Then they would come back and take our Ed 430 class, and that class is Social Cultural Overview of the Spanish World. And then they would take Extension 310, which would be Bilingual and Bicultural Teaching. So once they take those classes, then we would have the field experience set up for them, either if they're already practicing teachers, where this is a program that they could do on the site that they're at, or if there is not an opportunity to do that at their school site, that we take some time to figure out a placement where they could participate in that kind of teaching experience. Does that answer your question, Cheryl?
Yes, so it does sound like there will be the preliminary candidates in class with potentially the post-credential candidates. And then just, you know, I'm sure there will be a university supervisor assigned to the post-credential field, but who in the field, their district employed supervisor, would that be their principal if they're a teacher, somebody else? Can you tell me a little about that?
You know, we would work with definitely the school site to find that right placement, because the principal may have an idea of who they would like that candidate to work with. So we would be collaborating with those people on the school sites who would have the best idea of where it would work best for that candidate.
Thank you. That's very helpful, because I know there's a need not only to prepare preliminary credential holders, but there's a large need in the field for those who either their credential may have lapsed or they need to update. And I think that's a great service to provide.
And we look forward to as well, Cheryl, I didn't know that you had a bilingual authorization panel that would be looking into the standards. So we're looking forward to hearing more about that too.
We just discussed field work last week.
Oh, okay.
Right, Miranda? It was on my mind.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Terrific. Any Member Martinez?
Thank you. I had a question. You mentioned, we were just talking about in-service teachers, those who are experienced and currently in the classroom with a possibly clear credential, and then pre-service. How will the courses be differentiated for those teachers that bring in years of experience versus pre-service teachers who are, you know, just entering the profession around the bilingual authorization?
And that's a great question. I really believe that what will probably happen with our program is we're going to have a lot of veterans who are associated with the bilingual authorization. We plan on hiring those who've had that experience. So we're hoping to have, you know, the breakout sessions that we're using now, where we can actually address those differentiations between those candidates who are new to the bilingual authorization and those who've had field experience where they've been exposed to those bilingual bicultural classrooms. So we're hoping to kind of embed those differentiations into our program. And that may be having breakout sessions for those people who've had the experience, or even having different classrooms that address those issues.
Okay, thank you. I want to ask another question. So
Sure.
You mentioned that choosing placements for your candidates, whether they're pre-service or in-service. Do you have a number of bilingual settings that do you anticipate having enough? I'm from Northern California, where we have few true bilingual settings.
I don't think where we are in the Central Valley that we would have a struggle finding different placements for our candidates. And I think that we have a need, and that's the reason that we're even bringing this before you, is we would like to address the need for the Central Valley students and provide the equity and access that they need. So no, I don't think we would have a problem finding those placements.
And can I just ask you, I'm sorry to keep asking so many questions. So
sure.
If I'm an in-service teacher, I'm currently teaching, how will that work for me?
You know, and that's where I said the collaboration with you and your placement, where you are right now, and finding out if there's something in your own district, if there's something in your own school, where we can provide that experiential learning for you. And we will customize the placement to fit the individual who is applying for that bilingual authorization.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for the good questions. Any other committee members? Going once, going twice. All right, this is an action item. Do I have a motion? Motion by Member Forbes, second by Member Morrison. Secretary, please call the roll call vote.
Kathy Gracia.
Aye.
Cheryl Forbes.
Aye.
Bob Franley.
Aye.
Mike Hillis.
Aye.
Lynn Larson.
Aye.
Marty Martinez.
Aye.
Anna Moore.
Aye.
Gerard Morrison.
Aye.
Kevin Taylor.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, everyone, and congratulations.
Thank you so much. We look forward to coming back and seeing you in a year or so.
All right, terrific. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. All right, that takes us to item 9, which is the discussion of institutions not in compliance with accreditation timelines. Analyst Michelle Bernardo will present this action item. Does anyone need to recuse themselves? No? Ms. Bernardo, will you begin, please?
Sure. Just a quick update on this item from the last meeting we had in June. So for the preconditions, we've actually received all of the preconditions from all the institutions. And then for the ADS submissions, all of the institutions have now submitted the report decks. So we're good for the preconditions and the ADS submissions.
Terrific, thank you. This is an information action item. No action is required at this time unless the COA wishes to take action. We're okay with the report as is. Thank you, Ms. Bernardo. We will move to item 10, which is the discussion of the first quarterly report of Milpitas Unified School District. Consultant Roxanne Perdue will introduce this item. Joining her today are institutional representatives Raquel Kuznowski, sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly, Director of Learning and Development, and Kim Nguyen Tosa of New Teacher Induction Program. Does anyone need to recuse themselves? All right, Ms. Perdue, will you begin, please?
Good morning, committee members. This item provides the first quarterly report for the Milpitas Unified School District. Milpitas USD operates a teacher induction program. Again, joining us today from Milpitas USD induction program, we have Kim Nguyen and Raquel Kuznowski. They will be available to respond to any questions you have about their report, which is included in your item, while staff is available to answer any of your process questions. The Milpitas USD site visit was conducted back in February 3rd through 5th, 2020. The COA at that time granted a status of accreditation with major stipulations to the institution. As part of the accreditation decision, the COA also required the institution to provide quarterly reports, with this being the first of 4 quarterly reports. There were a total of 5 major stipulations with that first site visit, and the institution was required to address those stipulations, and they outlined on the first, the stipulations are outlined on the first page of this item. Included on the first page of the item is a link to the full team report as was presented previously to the COA. In this item, the institution provides a report addressing each of the stipulations. For the first stipulation related to the demonstration of how institutions actively involve faculty, instructional personnel, and relevant stakeholders in the organization, coordination, and decision-making for the program, the institution provided evidence of actions that took place since the site visit, including a new member agreement that was introduced to their advisory board. The evidence for this stipulation was clear and demonstrated the beginning progress so far with additional plans for the future, which with the first item, that would be a goal, establishing a plan, and then hopefully if they were able to take action so far, providing evidence of what they were able to take action on. For the second stipulation related to the education unit monitoring and communicating a defensible credential recommendation process by the institution. Despite challenges due to COVID-19, the institution implemented a new exit interview process via Google Meet. And the goal of their exit interview panel was to measure growth in relation to the CSTPs. The new process is very thorough. But additional plans should be made to review the actual formal recommendation process also. For the third stipulation related to supporting candidates who need assistance to meet competencies, this institution took action to begin candidate self-reflection, as well as developing an action plan by the candidate and deciding on next steps and focusing on growing their mastery towards their CSTPs. Additional plans are also included, such as video recordings on self-selected CSTPs in order to receive feedback from their mentors, as well as a new induction intervention team. The future plans that involve feedback from the mentors, as well as the intervention team, appear to be the most helpful in supporting the candidate, and those are future plans for this stipulation. The fourth stipulation involves a comprehensive continuous improvement process where the unit assesses their effectiveness and makes modifications. The program took action to invite stakeholders to participate in the advisory board to assess the suggested changes and modifications. Meeting notes were provided as part of the evidence for review, and additional future plans, however, should be made in relation to the stipulation, as that was the only action taken on this item with no future plans provided. The final and fifth stipulation involves a few different factors, including demonstrating the program having a positive impact on teaching and learning in California schools. And that fifth and final stipulation has multiple parts to it. And I emphasize that last part about positive impact because that was a particular focus in team discussion, though all parts of the stipulation are important. The first part of the stipulation involves candidates demonstrating their knowledge and skills related to the standards, which is reflected in earlier actions and evidence that we have discussed in this item. However, the program should make plans to address that final part of the stipulation that I mentioned related to their positive impact. In all, the program has made significant progress in addressing the stipulations for our very first report. Staff recommends that the COA accept the first quarterly report from the Milpitas Unified School District. Thank you.
Thank you for your very thorough report, Ms. Perdue. That was very helpful this weekend reading that. And at this time, I would like to invite the institutional representatives to briefly comment about the report.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, committee members.
As you can see by our report in front of you, we have made a lot of progress in addressing the stipulations since our visit, both through planning and execution. We hope that this progress gives us a good step towards reaching accreditation this year.
Thank you. Ms. Nguyen, did you want to make a comment or?
I'm just going to echo what Ms. Raquel Kusunoki said. You know, when we had our site visit, we were just actually really just excited about all the things that we can do to improve the program. And as you can see in the report, we started right away.
Right, thank you. Based on the report, you've done a lot of work. It looks great. I kept clicking on all the things, and there was a lot of evidence there about the work that you've been doing in the last bit here. I would like to open the floor up to the Committee on Accreditation members. Does anybody have a comment or a question? Member Morrison.
Hi, thanks for the detailed report. I just have a question about the induction intervention team, and I was just interested in getting an idea of what stage in the process you would see this happening, and what I know you have some of the kind of possibilities that would trigger this team and an intervention. But I'm just interested in at what point would you begin this process, or how early would this be required to start?
I think it just depends on case by case with the teacher candidate. We do have a teacher who was in year 2 that we did not recommend for a clear credential. We felt that they needed more support in showing their mastery towards the CSCP. So he was a great candidate to be placed in our IET or IIT. So right now our next steps for this particular candidate is to gather evidence of what they've been working on, and then working together as a team to identify what areas that we can that he or she can work on towards this year to meet that. And the requirements for this particular candidate is more focused on just the ILP and completing it, going through that cycle with additional support of having their a mentor, but also an additional mentor to provide a different perspective, and then gathering the team in together and meeting together so that they know that they're along this progress with us, that they're not just placed in this team just because they didn't meet a whatever requirement.
Thank you. Thanks.
Right. This is either an information or an action item. If we choose to, we can accept the report and no action is necessary. Anybody want to suggest any actions? No? All right, well, we look forward to seeing you again in the future. Again, thank you, Ms. Kusunoki, Ms. Nguyen, and Ms. Perdue. And good luck with the start of the school year with your program and program changes. It'll be challenging.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, that takes us to item 11, which is the discussion of issues and options for programs in the 2021 academic year. Director Terry Clark will introduce this item. Ms. Clark, will you begin, please?
Yes, thank you, members. This item is kind of an intro to what we'll be doing Thursday morning at the commission meeting. The commission has this agenda item that is linked from your item on their agenda to have a very rich discussion. We've taken agenda items to the commission both in April and in June, and they reported on actions that were taken. They requested that the commission take actions, and this is doing both. It is giving an update of what has been happening, and it also is looking forward to the beginning of the 2021 year. When staff developed the April item, which took forward a number of flexibilities, from the questions we were getting from our preparation programs, we pretty much knew what we wanted to ask the commission to provide flexibility on. Because we were 3/4 of the way through the year, we had all these questions that were helping us, and it really pointed us to some very specific things. it's a different time now. The 2021 school year is getting ready to open. We started thinking about this back in the spring. Things have been changing a lot. One of the things we have done is we've been working with some groups of program leaders. And in many ways, we have a benefit here because Mike Hillis has served on the program leader group for the preliminary preparation programs. There's a group of 8 individuals, 2 representing CSU, 2 representing UC, 2 representing AICCU institutions, and 2 representing district intern programs. They've met on a weekly basis and they've come up with some recommendations, and you'll see those if you click on the link to this that's the insert that's with this agenda item. We also had both Karen Sacramento and Gay Roby meeting with induction program leaders, and there's some recommendations. There's a recommendation in the item about induction programs, and that recommendation has to do with the fact that the suggestion is that the commission endorse the analysis of Program Standard 5 for teacher induction programs and Program Standard 8 from the preliminary admin program for admin induction programs, and that the analysis of those standards guide the induction programs as they work with candidates that still have to complete a performance assessment, because we know that due to both the program sponsor variable term waiver and the executive order, there are going to be a number of people joining induction programs this year, both for teachers and administrators who still have the performance assessment to complete. The item also gives some information on support for RECA for induction programs to access. And then the third major part of the item is about the early care and education, the child development permit community. And Dr. Phyllis Jacobson, along with Terry Bixler and Aaron Skubel in the certification division, has met with that community. And there's a number of recommendations in the item about that. Moving back to preliminary teaching, the recommendations in here, there was an analysis completed by the work group, and they really looked at standards 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6 of the preliminary multiple single subject program and really said, even in a virtual environment, the programs can pretty much meet those standards. There's a couple comments in the middle of the item about how you might have to think about the standard a little bit differently in preparing candidates towards mastery of the teaching performance expectations. Well, programs may have to be teaching those a little bit differently. They have to be finding maybe some different ways for their candidates to practice them, and they might be assessing their candidates in slightly different ways. Clinical practice, program standard 3 for the preliminary multiple and single subject program. It has a lot of analysis in this item. The team spent a lot of time in program standard 3, and the analysis here has to do with how should the commission look at that standard and advise programs as to what it is to meet that standard in this COVID 2020-2021 school year. I do want to point out that we have not addressed the special education standards in here. They are nowhere near as specific as the multiple and single subject standards. And what we're asking the commission to do is any of the modifications you adopt in multiple and single subject, direct staff to prepare parallel flexibilities for the special education programs. We don't know what happened at the commission meeting. It's on Thursday morning, and they'll be discussing this item in depth. But that's in essence what this item is about. And I'd like to turn it over to Member Hillis if he has any comments on the process of how we got here and what's in the item.
Thanks, Terry. Actually, I think you summed it up very well in terms of the discussions. But I can say from the program leaders group, I think we all found it a very, very helpful and rich discussion for us personally, thinking through our own programs, thinking through the challenges that we're anticipating. I know Terry originally said we were only going to meet until the end of June or so, and we ended up meeting right up until the very end. And I think partly because the landscape continued to change. And so there were issues that we didn't necessarily anticipate maybe in early June, that by the end of June, early July, were beginning to come to fruition, especially in terms of the K-12 systems making the decision to go fully virtual. I think, overall, there was an acknowledgement by the group that certainly to have candidates go through a program during this period of time is not in any way completely comparable to what candidates had gone through previously. However, we also felt like there was there's very strong potential for candidates to continue to get an experience that could be very helpful for them in moving into the K-12 system. I think a couple big factors play into that is that I think it really puts a lot of emphasis on preliminary programs partnerships with their K-12 partners. And because we're going to have to be working with them to make sure that things as seemingly as simple as just access into email systems and whatnot. What we've heard is that that's not always as easy as some districts. Some districts give it relatively simple and others do not. And so how do you make that equitable across the programs? I think the other big question that we discussed at our previous meeting was the role of the TPA and how the TPA ultimately could get fleshed out if the entire year is virtual. And obviously this past year, it was a little bit different given that a lot of the candidates going through the program already had a significant amount of face-to-face experience in the classrooms. Whereas this year, candidates will be starting out in a virtual setting, and so that's going to look quite a bit different. And as Terry pointed out to the group last Tuesday, programs still have the variable term waiver option if the executive order is not extended to move that. And again, we are also very sensitive to the issue of induction programs taking on the sole responsibility of the TPA as well. So a lot of moving pieces, really good discussions. And I think the other thing too is we also recognized how we probably continue to need these conversations moving forward because some people are doing some pretty amazing things, and we need to hear more about that so that we can capitalize on each other's experience and expertise.
And I would add that exact comment that Member Hillis just made, in last week's PSDE news, we announced that the staff is going to be facilitating some office hours, and they're going to be targeted to specific types of programs. The special education programs are going to have a set of office hours where either Sarah Solari Colombini or William Hattrick or both are there. Multiple and single subject with Jake Schuler, Poonam Bedi. The intern programs with Bob Locks, the teacher induction programs, and the dates and links will be in the PSDE news. And what it would allow program leaders to do is to come together, talk about things that are challenging them, share successes, share ways they've addressed challenges, and ask questions of commission staff. And so there won't be any presentation from the commission at these office hours. It's like an office hour at a university where as the program comes together to ask questions, and more than an office hour though, to share successes with each other. So that type of community is going to be starting up later this month for the programs. So we'll know a lot more Thursday after the commission hears this item and any actions they choose to take.
I was curious about what Member Hillis said. Thank you, Terry. I'm sorry. This comment stuck with me, though, moving the TPA into the induction programs?
It's not that the TPA requirement is moving to induction. It's that if candidates in preliminary programs are in virtual settings all year long, are they going to be able to complete the TPA? There's been a lot of success for candidates submitting a TPA as long as they're doing synchronous virtual teaching. TPA has to include synchronous teaching. It cannot include asynchronous for the video and that portion of it. We are watching very closely. The performance assessment team has been looking very carefully at scoring for the Cal TPA, and we're communicating routinely with Scale for the Ed TPA. So it's not that the requirement is necessarily moving. The standards aren't changing at this point. It's just that through the executive order, and if there's an extension to that order, and through the variable term waiver, if the commission provides that variable term waiver for people completing during this year, it could push the TPA for these candidates. Even more of the candidates than it got pushed for the 2019-2020 year.
So they could concurrently be doing their beginning induction, but still needing to finish. Okay, perfect. That's this. I find the flexibility that has been offered outstanding. It's been really fun to see all the reports that come in, the PSD news, and it's terrific how fast the CTC is responding. Anybody else want to ask any questions or make comments? This was just an overwhelming item because there's so many things to address and things to think about and looking forward. And I think, Mike, you said we had to continue because every day you decide something, it changes, and we feel the same way. And as principals and teachers, it's really hard to make decisions because we get new information and new opinions and new SBs so frequently. So anything else? Member Taylor.
I'd like to reiterate your comment in thanking Terry and the team for their flexibility and advocating for that flexibility. It's been really good. One of the things, everybody's mentioned the way that the landscape keeps changing here, and thinking ahead, if the entire school year is virtual, then one of the considerations that has a number of us at Cal Poly losing sleep is how do we ensure that our candidates have the classroom management skills that they're going to need for their career, because completing a TPA based on online synchronous instruction is one thing, but as soon as they end up in the classroom, we could have teachers, newly qualified teachers, leaving in droves because they don't have the classroom management skills, which is really causing us some concern, because we don't want to turn out any old teacher. We want to turn out highly qualified, very competent teachers who are going to endure for their career in the profession. And so there may be some, I'm in my mind, I'm thinking about maybe purposefully holding back people from completing their TPA, or in the induction plan, in that transition plan, talking about the need for, and collaborating with induction programs on the need for a really rich support system around classroom management.
All right. Thank you. Member Martinez, and then Member Co-Chair Frelly.
Thank you. So one of the things I just wanted to say, first of all, to echo everybody's comments about just thank you to the commission, to those of you on the team at CTC for all the support you've given, to Mike Hillis and your team for that great work. One of the things I think as an opportunity, and Kevin kind of just called it out, there's some downsides in terms of distance learning teaching, and when we talk about classroom management and some of those key experiences that all teachers need prior to entering that classroom, as an in-service teacher. I think there's an opportunity right now. We've been trying to strengthen that connection and that pathway from the preparation program to the classroom through the work of the ILP or the I can't remember what's called in the intern or in the pre-service programs, but I think it's an opportunity now to really, again, strengthen that connection between induction and pre-service programs, preparation programs, through that work and through ensuring that teachers or candidates have that experience that they need and that we're connecting it. I also wanted to just thank Terry and team for the work you've been doing with induction programs as they've kind of taken on some new roles in terms of supporting TPAs or RICAs and some of those pieces, with helping, providing those opportunities for them to network and to learn from colleagues, but also understand kind of their role and how to support those teachers throughout. And I would continue to advocate for preparation programs and induction programs to stay connected, so that because induction programs are not necessarily RICA experts or TPA experts, and so helping them understand how they can or resources that they can access. Anyway, thank you for the time and for all the work everyone's been doing.
Thank you, Member Martinez. And Ms. Roby was reminding us that it's the ILP for teacher induction and the IIP for admin induction.
APA.
Clarification there. All right, Member Lynn, Member Larson. Chair Fraley, sorry, out of order.
Yeah, I was thinking Bob goes first.
Okay. Chair Fraley, and then Member Larson, and then Cheryl.
No worries. Just putting my TPA hat on. Many of you know I do a lot of work with the TPAs. And just hats off to Terry and everybody who's supportive of the process. And Amy Rising, who works as I think officially it's I don't know her title, but she basically oversees the assessment process. Everybody's heavily involved in weekly phone calls. All the leads of us, we get together, we discuss what is going on within the educational system, and we adjust to what is going on there while still remaining true to the standards. And we're just about to start operational year 3 and doing the whole retraining of current assessors so that they are more knowledgeable to how to view the assessments that come through, especially since they're all online. And CTC has been offering a number of workshops as far as how to guide program directors for administering the TPAs and guiding the students and the candidates through this process in this ever-changing environment. So again, hats off to the CTC for staying on top of this on a weekly basis, because it's been really beneficial. And the comments we're hearing from program directors is that they're finding that the information that's being provided has been helpful. So, this will be an ongoing process. On anything that I hear from my end, I'll be happy to share. And Terry, of course, has all the information, but just want to chime in with that. So thanks, Terry.
Thank you, Member Fraley. Member Larson.
I do just wanted to add my thanks to Terry and staff for the outstanding information and timely response to everything that was going on this spring for such a large bureaucracy in such a huge state. It was amazing and heartwarming to see the care and concern for our teacher candidates in the field. And I know that the program here at Brandman and all of our interns really appreciated the numerous meetings and the information sharing. It just made that whole process so much easier and comforting to know that CTC had our candidates back, and they really felt that. So I just wanted to share that. Also, just a thought as we go into this year, I can envision different places in the state having different responses to online and distance learning. We're also going to see counties that are able to go back to in-person instruction and other counties that aren't. And so for Brandman, I can see where we have some campuses, excuse me, where our students are able to go back to the classroom, and other campuses where our students are not able to go back into the classroom, since we have campuses all up and down the state. So just keeping that in mind, that some programs may be dealing with students and candidates in both in-person and distance learning situations as we move forward.
Great, thank you, Member Larson. Member Forbes.
You're muted, Cheryl.
Carol, you're
Well,
muted.
and I was just thanking you, Member Larson, because you raised one of the issues that is concerning us within even our own county. We may have some elementary schools that go back face to face, others that don't, and potentially candidates in the same cohort who are in very different settings, which we're trying to avoid through really focusing on our partnerships, which I appreciated from Member Hillis's comments, drawing attention to how critical that really is. So again, much appreciation for everything that folks are doing. I share the concerns that Member Taylor raised about, the things that our candidates are clearly probably not going to be able to accomplish in this setting. I also have to say I have serious ethical concerns about the TPA. Honestly, I think parents can give informed consent, but they can't always control what's happening in the background. And when we invite the video camera into the homes for such a high stakes situation, I feel like that's putting both our candidates and the community in some types of situations that could result in exacerbating inequities, which concerns me vis-a-vis what value are we really going to get for all of that risk with the TPA. I'm not so sure how much it's really going to tell us at this point in the candidate's development that we can't figure out some other way. So that was my soapbox. I'll get down off that, but I just was curious if you could perhaps give us some insight, Terry, into the potential timelines for the CTC to decide about an extension of the PSVTW and or the extension of the executive order. I know those are somewhat beyond the commission's control, but can you give us a little sense of how that may roll out, those two things?
Definitely. The PSVTW, the commission can take that action at any regularly scheduled meeting where it's agendized. It's not on the agenda for August, but it is going to be brought up and discussed. And I imagine it could very likely be on the October agenda, which would allow anyone completing their program at the end of the fall semester, December or January, to have that option. As far as the executive order, that is the administration, the governor's decision, and our executive director is in conversation with the administration about that. And as things became more clear, each week as we did our program leader group, we would do a little bit of an update of what are you hearing from your partner districts. And we got to our next to last meeting in July, and that's right when the governor said, school will start at distance unless your county's not on a watch list. And we said, oh, if we'd known that 5 weeks earlier, we could have really been talking about some other things than what we were talking about. But we are working forward on both of those. And I did want to point out that Commission Chair Tina Sloan from UC Santa Barbara has joined as many of these program leader group meetings as her calendar allowed. She's also brought up the issue of classroom management. And we are actually, as a program leader group, we're still meeting. We'll be meeting next week also. And we're continuing to talk about which of the TPEs seem to be harder to possibly practice and demonstrate and assess through a virtual environment. And so there's definitely going to be some discussion about the program modification document, that programs are keeping track of what have they changed, and about those individual transition documents, because those transition documents are really going to be important. And that induction could very easily have a kind of a blanket statement of classroom management and some other strategies, some things in the TPEs may have been very hard for these candidates. So please put some focus on this to make sure you are supporting your candidates adequately.
I'm almost visualizing maybe a checklist in that bridge document. Was addressed adequately, was not addressed adequately. So somebody was saying earlier there's some pros and cons, mostly cons, but we are getting a little push for this bridge document to really have some validity and strength and to be looked at, and not just, we checked off the box, we sent a piece of paper along. So that's exciting. Anyone else like to make a comment? This is an information action item. If no one would like to suggest an action, we can just say thank you so much for everybody's hard work. We really appreciate it. We're reading what you're reading and the work that you're doing, and we look forward to hearing from you some more. All right, thank you. All right, that takes us to item 12, which is discussion regarding strategies to expand the diversity within the Board of Institutional Review. This is an information item. Administrator Erin Sullivan will introduce this item. Ms. Sullivan, will you begin, please?
Yes, thank you so much. So I'm actually very excited to be bringing this item, and I imagine that we'll have some conversations both within the COA and at the Commission, and I'm just really looking forward to kind of taking on this topic. So at the Commission's June 2020 meeting, commissioners started a conversation about their desire to have more focus maybe on social justice issues, and that kind of evolved then into a conversation about the diversity among the Board of Institutional Reviewer members. So staff went back and looked into the database that we used that has information on all these individuals. It has names, it has employers, it has the employers broken out by segment, it has various training options, it has areas of expertise. What it doesn't currently have are gender identification or race ethnicity information on the BIR members. So what we presented in this particular item was a breakdown of the data that we do have, because we did find that to be very interesting, just in terms of the breakout by the various segments, by the various areas of expertise. I don't think that there was anything particularly shocking in there. It kind of maps with what we know about where preparation happens and the greater number of, multiple subject programs, for instance, in the state than some of the other programs. One of the areas of interest, I think, in this, and something that I want to highlight, is that we do say in that first paragraph in the section under information about the BIR, we say that there are currently 570 individuals identified as active BIR members in the database. Based on what has been a historically sort of difficult task of finding enough BIR members to go on all of our site visits each year and help us tackle all of the reviews, we suspect that that number is probably not that high. But there are individuals in the database that are marked as trained for BIR and also active, but who perhaps haven't engaged in an accreditation activity in some time. So we've been working on cleaning up the data in the database, which is a great activity, really needs to be done. And when we cull it down to where we think, when we cull it down as much as we think we can just by what we know and what we can amend from within the office, staff is planning to then send out some emails to individuals marked active BIR but who haven't participated since, let's say, 15-16 or 16-17, and ask those individuals if they're still interested in participating, so we can just get a better sense of who really is an active BIR member. Staff's also planning to send out a voluntary survey to everyone who is active BIR and ask if they would be willing to provide to us gender identification and or race and ethnicity information, so we can start to get a sense of who our BIR members are, and are they diverse? Do they represent appropriately the kind of diverse population that we have here in California? And then, of course, once we have that information, we'd like to start looking at how maybe we could better target our recruitment. I think for a number of years, we just really needed people with expertise, and that certainly is the case. But I think that given what we're learning and how we're evolving as a culture, I think it might be a good idea to maybe make some steps. I shouldn't say I think the Commission has signaled that they think that it would be a good idea to make some steps towards really going out and targeting individuals and inviting them to be part of our process. We're not 100% sure yet what those steps would be, and so this is really the first item that we're bringing before the COA. Would really, really appreciate any ideas or recommendations that any of the committee members might have for how we can target recruitment to some of our more underrepresented individuals in the education community in California. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have about information in the report. And I'm definitely all ears for any recommendations that you might be able to make that staff can look at.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. Member Larson.
I think when I was first a BIR member, it was extremely beneficial to participate in the review process in advance of our institution going through accreditation. And so maybe looking at the institutions that are in the various colored cohorts and, you know, a couple of years in advance of them going through accreditation, targeting those particular institutions to recruit BIR members with the specific kind of marketing tack, so to speak, of, hey, your institution's going to be going through accreditation in a while. You know, going through BIR is very beneficial as you, you know, start going through this process to understand from the backside of the process what that's going to look like. That may be more of an encouragement for folks to participate, and you may gain some more members that way.
Thank you.
Member Forbes.
Yes, this is a really timely and exciting kind of activity, I think. So I know that commission staff often serves as liaison with different professional associations. So I'm thinking, for example, of CABTE, the California Association for Bilingual Teacher Educators, which might be a potential site to recruit, but also CABE for bilingual teachers, which would also, you know, could potentially reach multiple underrepresented audiences among the teaching force. And maybe CalEd, the Association for Educators of the Deaf, thinking about some of those professional associations that in all of the staff's free time, they could, or in some way, you know, kind of specifically reach out to them about the possibilities of the BIR, even, you know, more formally in some kind of, and maybe you already do this, announcements and so forth, so that it's not only the programs who are recruiting.
I think that's a great idea, and Member Forbes, you're right. Staff does have interaction with these groups, with the CABTE and CABE. I'm not 100% sure about CalEd, but I'll bet probably William has had some touch with those folks, and maybe also Sarah. So yeah, I think, you know, maybe a more direct, we do sort of encourage staff to remind folks that if they want to participate, here's how they can do that, but perhaps a more direct recruitment email at some point could also be really valuable.
CCTE would be another good organization. It's very active and has great connections with the IHEs.
Thank you.
All right, sounds like you're off to a good start. Members, Aaron, Ms. Sullivan, Dr. Sullivan, there you go.
Not doc, thank you though.
Gave you promotion. Anybody else like to make a comment?
And also, I just would like to recognize the comment from Committee Member Martinez in the chat. Thank you. I'm making a note of that as well. That's great.
All right. This is an information item only, so we will say thank you, Ms. Sullivan, and move on to the last two items on our agenda, which is public comment. Does any member of the public have anything it wishes to say? Please raise your hand in the chat feature and wait a moment to see if we have anyone indicating they wish to speak in the chat function. A reminder to keep your comments to 2 minutes. All right, no public comments. The COA cannot discuss them let's see, let's just move on to adjournment. As there were no public comments, I adjourn the August 2020 meeting of the Committee on Accreditation. I want to thank Member Taylor and Member Larson for completing your first meeting. Well done. Thank you for your contributions. And the next meeting of the committee will be October 29th and 30th, 2020. Things are going to be really different at that point. I just have a feeling, and I want everybody to stay safe. Take care.